Hello, everybody, and welcome to McRADcast Reviews. And today, me and Josh are going to be talking about the Netflix series Dracula. Just a quick little tidbit. The first part of this will be spoiler-free for those who have not seen the show that plan on watching it. And then we'll give you a spoiler alert warning, and then we'll kind of go into some spoilers. Dracula on Netflix. Josh tasked me with watching it. And let's get it going. I think I'll open up with just saying that I thought it was really well written. Even though when it first came on, I didn't know what they were going for, because it's very melodramatic. So it's very on the nose, and a lot of it seems cheesy. Yeah. But then when you realize it's consistently this thing, you're like, okay, this is like the only spoiler I'll give you here in the beginning is they mastered the vampire dad joke. Yeah, exactly.
Mastered it.
Yeah.
It didn't come off super cheesy. It was beautifully done.
Yeah, I agree.
Because he's Dracula, all the things he refers to that a vampire might do, that the actor / character in the show doesn't realize until it's, way too late most of the time, or whatever it may be. It's beautifully done. I think it was really well written. I actually, and for those of you who don't know, it's in the format of the BBC format of Sherlock and that sort of thing, where there are 3 episodes per season, hour and a half long each. And with those, it's like a little movie every episode, but they all follow right behind each other. So it's like it's like watching 3 30-minute shows all combined together, basically, per episode. So it feels a little long, but I felt that they did a really good job of the pacing in the show. The first episode, I was blown away. Absolutely shocked and amazed at how well they did Dracula in general. I'm not even a big horror guy, but I thought the guy they got to play Dracula nailed it.
Yeah, that guy was really good. And I am actually a horror fan, but I'm not necessarily like a vampire / Dracula flan. Isn't that like a Mexican dessert?
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm not a flan either. But I'm not really a huge fan of like Dracula vampire movies, especially the more modern, sparkly vampires and stuff. Now, old school, Lost Boys. Bram Stoker's Dracula's pretty tight. Things like that.
Interview with a Vampire.
Yeah. So, there's some that I dig more than others. But this was the guy who played Dracula, can't think of the actor's name right now.
I don't even know it, to be honest with you. I don't know it at all.
I saw it because I just finished it last night.
He's a menacing figure. He's taller than everyone else by a large margin. He's handsome. He's very articulate in multiple dialects. It's beautifully done. And he looks like, what's the original iconic Bela Lugosi or something like that? He looks like that guy.
So what I was talking about too, and did you pick up on the whole melodramatic, everything's over the top?
Yes.
Everything's super dramatic and super it's very on the nose. There's a scene where, and this is no spoiler, he shows up to dinner and he's wearing the same attire that you would get in a generic Dracula Halloween costume, the medallion and the white with and it's on the nose, and you're like, what? It's cheesy in a way, but it works so well because the whole show is themed around it.
Oh yeah,
and it was what is this?
Everything seems a little off in the beginning, and then as soon as you settle into the show, nothing points itself out anymore. You just are in the world. It's well written, well shot, well executed. The effects aren't over the top effects, in my opinion. A lot of the things he does are crazy things, and they're believable to some extent.
Yeah, and there was this weird vibe of everything was kind of about to be a joke, but there wasn't a punchline a lot of times. And then it got
serious.
Yeah, and it was what is this? Because when I first started seeing it, I was like, did they just poorly write this one scene? And then you realize okay, this is kind of the art style they're going for.
Our fans won't know, if we have fans, they won't know that I hated Thor Ragnarok. And the reason I hated Thor Ragnarok is because I'm a giant fan of that particular story arc in the comic books. And I know this seems like we're veering way off, but I'm about to come back to what you just said.
I'm with you. Yeah.
The reason that movie didn't work for me, but it worked for the general public, is every time it was about to get serious, they hit you with a punchline in Thor Ragnarok.
Right.
And it never got serious. Whereas that storyline felt like it should have been serious to me, it never did it. They went the other way with it. Whereas this one would make a joke and then boom, it would hit you with some serious stuff.
Oh yeah. Because there were times where it was like he was almost like leading into like, oh, this is going to be some silly,
and then he turned into Dracula,
and then it was like, oh shit,
yeah.
It got real dark.
He did Dracula things, you know what I mean? And so
it's almost too like it gave you this like false sense of hope.
Yes,
like you almost kind of felt like the character, but I don't even think I think the characters always felt doom when they realized what was going on.
Yes,
but for me, I was like, well, hold on, like this might go a different way, and it didn't. It was like, okay, he's just a piece of shit, like Dracula is.
Turns out,
yeah. But very well written. It really was, because they were very consistent with that. The kind of that. I don't know how to explain it, because I'm not a film critic. I don't, and I don't know what it is. Sometimes there's probably somebody out there that's like, that's called this or whatever. It felt very melodramatic. It was like you were watching this, like, I don't know how to explain it. Just watch it and you'll see. But and it also, to kind of give people the idea that haven't seen it, it spans a long time in the 3 episodes, and I'm putting that in air quotes because it is essentially 3 movies composed of like little vignettes of things. Not really vignettes, that's the wrong word. But anyway, the way it was put together was really cool. I thought the sets were really cool.
Yeah, I thought it was a beautifully shot, beautifully rendered. Everything about it felt like classic Dracula. But they had their own cool spin on things. Before we go any further, I think we should probably give an overall feel review of this and then kind of go into the spoiler alert area. Okay. That way we can kind of in-depth discuss certain specific things.
Well, I will say that overall, I liked it. Overall, I think I liked it. There were parts in the 3rd installment that definitely did not hit the mark for me at all. And I don't know if we'll get into this with the spoiler stuff, but I don't know if it was because I expected something different, because I try to take myself out of that now with like, it's not my art. I'm trying to appreciate someone else's art. And I don't know if it's because I had this expectation of where it should go in my mind, because I try to, like I said, just take that out of it because it's not mine. But it didn't feel like it worked very well for me. And we'll talk about that in a second. But overall, even into the ending, I was like, okay, I'm okay with that. And I think we differ there probably. So.
Well, I was on board through, it's a 4.5 hour series. I was on board for 4 hours and 10 minutes of it. And I'm telling you, I was raving about it. And I was watching it with a couple of people at my house, and everybody was the same shocked at the end. Like, what the hell just happened? Why did that train go off the rails? There was no reason for it to go off the rails. I trusted the writers. I trusted everything that was going on in the show, how it was produced and everything. And then all of a sudden, it was like they betrayed my trust and everything went to shit very quickly. I don't understand. I don't even know that I can even, with words, tell you exactly what moment it went off the rails. The whole field just went off the rails. None of the ending made any sense to me. I would implore everyone to go watch it, because I genuinely think the first 2.5 episodes is some of the coolest TV I've seen in a while. It's very well done. I loved it. Did not love the ending.
Yeah.
Thought they did no justice for any of the characters at the end.
That's fair.
So
okay, so I definitely liked it overall.
Absolutely, I recommend it.
And Josh, I think you liked it.
Yeah.
Recommend it.
But
don't like the ending.
The ending is the reason I told McCaskill to watch the show. I wanted to get your opinion on it.
Yeah.
Because I was going to make sure that I wasn't the crazy asshole that was being too critical of this. I tend not to be that.
Sure.
But I wanted to make sure that I wasn't in love with something and then they did something I didn't like, and so I fell off. Right.
That's fair.
So I definitely recommend everyone go watch it.
Yeah. I still would do. Yeah, absolutely.
I think the first 2.5 episodes is worth the watch.
It is.
And I just think you're going to be disappointed in the ending. And maybe this review will help you temper your expectations for the ending and not be as disappointed with it.
Yeah, sure. All right, so I think now we're going to say spoiler alert.
Yep.
If you haven't seen it and you want to go see it, go check it out. And then, maybe pause this episode and come back in 4.5 hours and listen to the rest of it. Don't leave us hanging.
The way we all watch media now, you'll come back in 4.5 hours from exactly this point.
Right. No, yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, spoiler alert coming in. Give you guys a few seconds to find another episode to listen to or, go listen to your other favorite. Go watch Dracula. Listen to your other favorite podcast. If you have watched it or you don't plan on watching it and you just want to hear the rest of it, we're going to get into that now. So, the series spans over 123 years, from 1897 to 2020. And is that the right math? Did I do that math right?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. I'm no math magician.
It comes to exact modern day.
Yes. And the thing that... Okay, so the first episode is kind of you meet Dracula and this lawyer. Is he a lawyer?
Yes, he's a lawyer.
He's a lawyer. And he's putting together...
Jonathan Harker, as they keep calling him.
Harker. And he comes in to broker like a land deal, like acquisition of land.
Tricked by Dracula.
Yes, property management type of thing.
Yeah.
And when you meet Dracula for the first time...
He is decrepit.
Whoa. He's withered and gnarly.
And that's the first time of the melodramatic that you see, really,
yes,
that you were talking about. And I get it. And the big thing about that is how he slowly gets younger as that episode progresses. And then the whole time you're like, well, dude, he's clearly drinking your blood, bro.
Yeah.
And
how did you not see this coming?
Yeah. But it really, really establishes really well that he can deceive you, and he is uber charismatic in a way that we can't even really comprehend. But they really do a good job of that.
Yeah. And I think there's this kind of understood thing that Dracula just has these, like, I don't know, it's not magic necessarily, but it's effectively mystical power to be so charismatic.
And that's a pretty good Dracula lore thing. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Uber charismatic.
One thing I gotta say though, when Harker shows up, and they're like, "Yeah, you gotta just wait out here in the middle of this fucking snowstorm. Like, he'll get you. It's cool." And you're like, "What?" And then it's like, his horsemen come, and that dude was so creepy.
Yes.
Drops him off. He's got the crazy thing over his face, but you can tell he's like gnarly looking underneath. And
it was Dracula.
Was it him? Okay, so I didn't even pick up on that.
I think it was Dracula.
Okay, so he drops him off, and then he like knocks on the door, and he's like, "Hey!" And it's like the creepiest castle of all time.
Ever.
And
not only that, he explains how creepy the castle is to him.
Yeah.
And he still elects to be like, "Cool, I'll stay here."
Yeah, when he first knocks and he turns around, and it's very like horror movie, like and then he turns around, the door's just open, and it's just like torches in there, and then he's still like, "Oh yeah, I'm just gonna go in," and you're like, "Dude, abandon the fucking mission, man."
Yeah. Even in 1897, they didn't have automatic doors, yo.
But of course, then we wouldn't have the show. So
the mystique of the show.
He meets up with Dracula. And it's a very like Dracula-esque kind of thing, but that's when it becomes kind of borderline comical, and you're like, "Oh, what?"
Dude, the dad jokes and the Dracula jokes in this show nailed it. I mean, they absolutely. I was so happy every time he did. Your
dad jokes, more like Vlad jokes.
Shit. But like when he, you'll feel very drained. That's a stupid joke.
Isn't that Dracula's name, Vlad?
Vlad the Impaler, I believe they call it.
That's who he was based on.
Yeah,
that was why that joke. Sorry, I'm like harping on my own joke here. I'm like, hey, laugh at my shit.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it kicks off pretty cool, and then he's even like, "Look, you're gonna get lost as fuck in this house because it's a labyrinth and the architect was a fucking,
really Harker is a side piece, right?
Yeah,
he's just a transitional piece to get you to Sister Agatha.
Yeah, dude. So man, and that's all in the first episode. Yeah. So basically,
that's what you get with
Harker shows up to the. Do they ever explain how he gets to the convent? Was that a thing?
Yeah. He fell
Yes.
from the castle, and then fishermen got him in a net.
Yeah.
And
Sorry, guys, you have to excuse me. I watched all of this like within like a 2-day period, so it's all kind of. I'm like, what episode did what happen?
Yeah.
So yeah. So he gets brought to this convent. He is clearly dead.
as fuck.
That.
They do a really good job of making you really grossed out by him.
Yeah, the whole fly on the eyeball.
Fly in the eyeball thing was one of the coolest things ever. And then it comes out his mouth somehow, y'all. Yeah. First off, how does it even get in his eyeball? And second off, how does it get from his eyeball to his mouth? None of that connects unless you're dead, bro.
Anatomy, man.
Yeah.
I ain't no anatomist, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, so you meet Sister Agatha, and dude, she immediately, I was like, this is
commanding presence.
This is super. This is. I didn't know what was going on because when you first meet her, and she makes that joke where he says, "This is a house of God," and she goes, "Oh, a house of God. We could do with the man about the place." Yes. And I was like, "What is going on?" You know, and I didn't know. I was like, What's her angle here?" You know. Because she's not very nun-ish, nun-esque.
No, he's in a convent full of nuns, and a nun that doesn't act very nun-like walks in. She's the coolest fucking nun of all time, y'all.
Yeah. I would totally kick it with her.
Oh, absolutely.
And that plays out pretty cool.
Yeah, the Van Helsing
So,
thing.
turns out she is Van Helsing.
Yes.
I thought that was a really cool introduction. And it was, so, I have to say, and for better or worse, I'm going to put it out there early on. This is our first review / discussion about a movie or TV show in this case. I hate a lot of Netflix series that force that woke culture shit on people. Yes. I hate it. So it doesn't feel natural. But the way they introduce her as a female character, as Van Helsing, who's classically a male character.
We will always applaud when they put a people of color or of the opposite sex, a female. Mm-hmm. I will always applaud when they do that well.
Yeah, dude.
When they shove it down your throat, it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel natural. Yep. I want strong female characters, strong black, strong.
Well, there's this common misconception that's a new thing. And I'm like, have you ever heard of fucking
Alien?
Ripley from Aliens? Like, Jesus Christ, dude. I grew up fucking...
Yeah, the chick from Terminator.
Yeah, Samus from fucking Metroid. Come on, man. Anyway, I don't want.
And I don't want to do with more. Of
Sure. And I don't want to get on that. I don't want to get into that weird stuff. Anyway.
Well, one last thing. Game of Thrones also did that excellently.
Dude, amazingly.
All of the female characters were monsters in that show, and they didn't say, "Hey, look how awesome I am." They just made them awesome.
Yeah, they just had this commanding presence.
Yes.
And dude, Van Helsing being a badass chick who was like kind of posing as a nun, and like,
she wasn't posing.
Well, she wasn't posing, but she was definitely
against like a punk rock nun.
Yes,
right?
There you go.
She was an anti-establishment nun.
Dude, that was perfect. Punk rock nun.
Yeah,
that's my next album title.
All right.
So Justin McCaskill, the punk rock nun.
Yeah.
So yeah, dude, she was such a badass character. And you're kind of like, what's going on with it? Like, what are they? She's interviewing him, and she's basically like, and then when she just comes out and she's like, "Did you bang Dracula?" And he's like, "What?" And he's like,
Yeah, did you fuck that man?
She's like, "Did y'all fuck? Like, just tell the truth." And he's like, "I don't fuck. Did I fuck Dracula?" Like, and then you're like, I think he fucked Dracula. Like, even
I love the angle to where he thought he wrote down his whole account, but it was literally just admonishments of Dracula. He was so engaged with Dracula that he didn't even know the whole time, and it shows you that he is a monster effectively, right? And he's under the charm, the guise of Dracula the whole time. And so I thought that was beautifully done, the way they did that.
I liked it. So, yeah, and another thing that kind of adds to that whole like melodramatic, like over the top thing was when he first found that room full of crates, and he starts busting open the crates, and then like that undead like zombie dude comes out of it, and it's so like 80s horror movie, like you know that Netflix has the budget to make some badass CG, but it was like purposely like very.
I love it when
very puppet like.
I hate the extra CG stuff. I
was like, this looks terrible, kind of, but it worked, and I was like, that's fucking great. I really liked that, and I also liked the fact that just because Dracula bit you didn't mean you became a vampire necessarily. Mm-hmm. Like it was and I don't know if I really caught on to like what you had to do.
I don't know what the trigger was.
Because there's some movies where it's like he has to drink from you and then you have to drink from him to become.
Well, that clearly isn't the case in this.
No,
right?
But it's almost like he just decides if that's the case.
It's like he decides whether you. And then apparently there's something in you that makes it determine how much of a monster you become as a vampire.
Yeah.
Because all of the people he has turned almost exclusively turn into monsters.
Right.
He's one of the few vampires, apparently, and maybe the only one that we know of, that doesn't turn into a monster. And it's because, specifically, I thought it was really cool how they did this. He was selective with his food. He only ate interesting or intelligent
and he
people.
they had that whole bit about, it was almost like he was like a wine connoisseur.
Yes.
He was talking about how like he only picks like the best in the vintage and all that stuff.
And
they made a really good connection with that. And it was like, it was along those same lines. It was kind of cheesy, but it was like smart.
it makes sense, right? Like, you are what you eat.
Yeah.
And that whole thing they keep coming back to, that blood is life.
And it also entered into that last episode, which we'll get to in a second. But and the way, so an interesting thing they took, and you kind of told me about this before I watched it, was that he gained like the memory
/ essence.
and the essence of the person he drank from, and he kind of gained their experiences.
Yep.
Like he would know how to do things that they knew how to do.
Speak their language.
Yeah.
Which
was cool, but this plays into a thing I didn't like later.
Yeah,
the way they played off some certain things. We'll talk about that in a second.
You can definitely poke a lot of holes in everything you watch nowadays. You have to suspend a
certain I don't think for me this was poking holes necessarily. Maybe it was. You can call me on it if you want. But we'll talk about it when we get into the third episode, because it didn't happen until the third episode.
Yeah. The third episode is where we have almost all of our issues.
Yeah.
You'll only hear us talk excellently about this show. I have zero issues with the first 2 episodes.
Yeah, the second episode was cool because he was on the boat.
Yes.
And it was like this.
It was such a cool murder.
It played
train.
out. Yeah, it played out like a Clue. Like it was like a whodunit kind of thing, and it was like, oh, this is kind of cool.
But whodunit kept doing it.
Yeah, and you know who did it.
We know, and that's the beauty of this show is that's the reason those jokes work, because we all know he's Dracula.
Now, what I didn't know right out of the gate, and it was super obvious now that I look back on it, was that he commissioned the whole trip.
Yes,
and he was
brilliant.
Like the sponsor of everybody who was on the trip.
He picked his food.
Yeah, and you have this very interesting cast of people on the thing. You have this blundering idiot guy who's new to the boat, the guy with the cook or whoever
with the stutter.
Yeah, and then you had the big Bluto looking, Popeye Bluto looking fucking.
He
cook
clearly
guy.
didn't intend to eat that guy.
No,
you know what I mean.
You had the Indian. Was he Indian? I don't want to be racist.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. He
almost
was,
positive.
Yeah,
he was an Indian doctor, and he was with his daughter, and he was like a brilliant mind. And then you had the kind of the narcissistic husband.
Yep.
Who at first she seemed like he was a kind of aloof and kind of just whatever, and then like the kind of, what would you call the wife, kind of like a she probably had some kind of like wanderlust kind of very
she wanted to adventure.
Yeah, very adventurous kind of person, and
you didn't get to see her much though.
No, and she was like this beautiful person and all that good stuff.
He took a chomp out of her pretty quick.
Dude, that was brutal too. And it was what I liked about it is they portrayed Dracula to where he was like cool, calm, collected, but sight of or scent of blood, no matter what,
rage.
He had this like, and he had to like choke it down, man.
Oh, yeah.
And that whole like, and he turns around and he like, gets his shit together and he turns back around and he's like, oh yeah, and it was so over the top that it just worked so well to me. I loved it.
I think the second episode was one of the coolest things I've seen in a very long time.
Yeah, I really liked that whodunit murder
because
mystery.
It's so goofy, but also
who's in room number 9?
Because he's going to murder a lot of people, but you know there's also a third episode, right? Yeah. That's the issue with it, is that there's something past this.
Who's in room number 9, dude? Yeah. I was like, what? When it like came together, I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Yeah. Like, this is a thing? Dude.
Yeah, I thought it was wonderfully done. She, he turns Agatha. She becomes a vampire. That's gigantic. Yeah. You know what I mean?
And I'm trying to think if I've missed anything that I wanted to talk about in episode 2 there. That's pretty much, there's definitely, I don't want to
just say. He goes down with the ship.
I don't want to give a full synopsis of every scene, but,
he goes down with the ship. That's cool.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, what
lost
the fuck?
Forever.
What's going on here? Yeah. And then this is where it got weird because it jumped. So the first jump wasn't very far, obviously. That was like, from the first to the second episode, it was like a year's time, maybe.
Yeah.
A few months had passed.
Yeah.
And into episode 3, immediately in episode 3, it's like 123 years later.
And you don't know that until the helicopter.
Yes, yeah. Because you're like, what the fuck is going on? Yeah.
He crawls out of the water. You don't know how long it's been because he doesn't age.
Yeah.
And then that. See, and those things are really cool to me. And the funny thing is when I was sitting there watching it, I was watching it with my roommate and my girlfriend, and I said, dude, they could do really cool shit with this. In between episodes 2 and 3, right before this happened, I said they could jump him in time to, in future seasons, to anywhere they want.
Yeah.
Anywhere. You could go back in time, you could go forward in time, and it's
unbeknownst to you.
Yes. And so
you said future seasons, that's why I said that.
Yeah. And so I was like, man, that would be really cool because they could jump time and you could use the same guy and have different storylines that weren't connected at all. And so I think you could do some really, really cool stuff with it. And then all of a sudden he wakes up, crawls out of the water, and there's a helicopter above him. And I was like, whoa, I accidentally called that. They didn't do it next season. They just did it now.
So, you know what I did? I did that with a movie one time, not to get too far off track. The Village.
Yep.
M. Night Shyamalan.
Yep. Not my favorite guy.
No, so that was the movie that made me go, what the fuck? I was so pissed when I found out. Spoiler alert, by the way. So, like, you have to give a 20-year movie, or whatever, however old that movie is. So I jokingly, I was pissed because I found out the monsters weren't real because they found the suit or whatever. And I was like, what the fuck? And I immediately was checked out. I was like, okay, I don't even care anymore. And then she's running through the woods. Have you seen the movie? She's running through the woods, and I was like, this bitch is about to jump over this wall, and there's going to be like a Taco Bell. And then literally, like, it wasn't, but like, and a car drives by, and I was like, God. And the people I was with were in the movie theater. We were literally the only people. It was like me, Mark Brake. I don't remember who all was with us. Anyway, it was like 2 or 3 people.
Unfortunate soul.
And they all looked at me and were like, I was like, I swear to God, I've never seen this piece of shit. And anyway, to get back to Dracula, so it cuts to present day and kind of this like tactical.
Yeah, it's a tactical squad with Agatha.
Mercenary. Yeah. And she just shows
Agatha,
up. And you're like, what the fuck?
What the hell? And then she's not Agatha. She's a descendant of Agatha.
Yeah. Agatha was her great aunt.
Yeah,
I think they said. Yeah. And I thought that was a cool angle.
I thought so too.
Because the legend got passed on, and like literally her life's work was
to find Dracula.
And if he popped back up, and Dracula was just dormant.
Yeah.
Apparently in this.
And the stupidest fucking scuba diver of all time.
Yeah.
Sticks their finger in a perfectly preserved Dracula mouth.
Like he's not rotted.
Look at these super cool fangs.
He's not rotted at all.
Yeah.
He was like in some regenerative
state.
Jesus. English is weird.
Yeah. Jesus did that too.
Yeah, he was in a regenerative. He was in a geriatric state. And so he comes up to the surface, and there was this whole thing, and then they take him into this like high-tech prison, right? Now here is about to be my first like, oh no, he goes to the person's house first.
Yeah, he runs away.
This is the first moment that I went.
I thought the scene in the house was cool because he was like, "Where's your servants?
Yeah.
This place is fucking awesome."
Well, the only reason that's what pissed me off a little, because I understand what he was saying. So the gist of it for you listening is it's basically, and if you've seen it, you already know, Dracula has been underwater for 123 years. Okay, a lot has changed since 1897, and he is in a shithole of a house. Like, it's not a good house.
No, not that nice.
And he's like, oh man, this fucking place is badass. Where's your servants? And she's like, and the lady's terrified, and she's like, what the fuck are you talking about? She's got the knife, And he's like,
and her husband's all crinkled up in the goddamn refrigerator.
In a mini fridge.
Yeah.
And he's like, this place, you got all these trinkets and treasures and fucking, I have seen some shit in my day.
And I ain't never seen nothing.
This is the best. And it was like, dude, that's a shithole fucking place that somebody's trying to get the fuck out of. There's probably fucking hepatitis on stuff, and anyway, that was a cool kind of thing to go like, oh yeah, if you've been around for 500 years but you missed 123 years of it, you would be like, what the fuck is this stuff?
Yeah.
But this is where it made me go, and it wasn't a huge deal. It wasn't a deal breaker. I still liked it past this point, but he had the guy's memories and stuff. And he initially was like, and then he was like, oh, it's a telephone, and like he knew what that was, but he wasn't impressed. But you're impressed with like their shitty kitchen. I don't know, and maybe I read too far into that, but
what I got out of it is like every now and then he had to, like burp up a name of something.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
And so it's like it's not an instant thing.
But to me, I guess to me it was like, I guess the phone would have been way more impressive than their shitty kitchen with like a spice rack or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, and like I said, I'm probably reading way too far into that. But I was just like, okay.
I thought they wrote some of, and like I said, the third episode is really where you can get off the rails.
Right? Oh yeah.
When you bring that guy into modern day, there's just too many holes to be punched in the plot.
Right. And shortly after, in fact, in that interaction, Agatha's ancestor shows up, and he escapes their grasp once, and they show up. They take him to their high-tech facility. It's like this high-tech prison facility. Mm-hmm. Now, this is where it really starts for me to go like, wait, what? It's funny, and maybe I just got to look at it as the joke it's supposed to be. But I was just like, basically...
When he lawyers up?
Yes. Yes.
It's the dumbest shit ever.
Which is, at first you're going, okay, that's funny. I can laugh at that. But it was like, they're in this high-tech prison, and they're mercenaries.
Yeah.
And they're like...
murder the lawyer at that point? Because you can't let the demon spawn
and they're like, well,
the cage.
Got us on a technicality. Yeah. And they let him go.
Yeah. Well...
and there's this really dramatic scene where she's like outside, and she like drinks the thing, and you're like... What the fuck?
Yeah,
what are you talking about?
It was real dumb. And I thought it was cool how she drank his blood. I thought there were some cool parts of that because then she accesses the people inside of him, and then because she has a connection to the Van Helsing, who was also inside of him, she gets to have that conversation and become one with that person, and so then they kind of meld those two people together.
Sure.
And I didn't mind that, so I thought that was cool. What I didn't like is they turned over Dracula to his lawyer.
Yeah. They were like, well...
And he was like I actually went with the joke, right? I was like, okay, they've done really good up to this point. Yep. I'm cool with this. That's fine. Because at the end of the day, they weren't there to kill Dracula, obviously, or they would have done it.
Yeah, and they had the whole research team, and they're like, we're going to feed him your blood.
That's the whole point of them. It was not to find and kill Dracula. It was if he ever came back, we're supposed to study him to find out what makes him work, because that's what the whole thing was there for, right? That's what Agatha Van Helsing was trying to figure out.
Part of that, for me, I think, was I thought that was one of those moments where they were trying to insert the, like, woke culture thing of, like, Dracula has rights, and fucking... And I was like... I don't think they were, but I
thought they actually did a really good thing in the opposite way in that where she, the Van Helsing ancestor, says, well, what, you're weirded out because a woman's in charge? A lot of things have changed in the last 123 years.
Yeah.
And he said, rights? You don't have rights. No one has rights. Your democracy is stupid.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? And I thought that was really, really well done. I thought that was brilliant. What I didn't like is fast forward through all of this, and you get to a point toward the very end where everybody who's here now is probably still listening, has probably seen it, and they're just wondering what our stupid opinions are at this point. Where I get really, really lost in the weeds is she has cancer and she's dying, and it involuntarily made him puke when he tried to drink her before.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden, he's immune to sunlight, right? And I loved that part.
Yeah, that was cool.
I thought it was dope. I thought when she exposed all of his weaknesses as, like, mental weaknesses effectively.
It was almost like... because it was all
in his head.
It was all So if you haven't seen it and you don't plan on seeing it and you're here still, Dracula in the show, they do a really good job of kind of explaining some of the cheesier like Dracula tropes, and some of them are real. Like, you have to invite him inside.
Yes.
He's
well, you think they're real.
Well, no, that's what I'm getting to. And he's he'll burn up in the sunlight and stake to the heart, and so on and so forth. I don't know if they touched on the garlic and stuff.
No, they didn't touch on garlic.
Cross, holding the cross up made him
holy sacraments in general. Yeah. Right, he can't cross over Bible pages or Jesus bread or whatever that stuff was.
Mm-hmm. But the whole kind of payoff of the show was his. As powerful as he is, he was just really afraid to die.
And I hated that.
And so I was okay with that. What I didn't like, I think where we kind of divulge, or kind of diverge, rather, not divulge. English again. Where we kind of diverge is I didn't really care for the whole storyline of the party girl thing.
Nope, I didn't like her either.
I know what they were.
I thought it was cool for a minute until it never went anywhere.
Yeah, and it wasn't. And the way they played it out was the whole thing with her beauty. But she was like, I don't even care. But then she did care. She was all burned up and shit. It didn't, for me. It didn't fit the same mold as like the over the top stuff they were doing before.
Yeah.
It was just too like.
Effectively, what happened is he moved into modern day and he fell in love with a girl that wasn't afraid of death.
So she thought, maybe.
I think he would have picked up on it if she wasn't.
Okay. Yeah.
Or if she was really afraid of death.
Okay.
I think she was just a goth emo kid.
Yeah.
At heart,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
One of those people that genuinely thinks, well, this life is nothing and I'm not really afraid of death and all of that. And she didn't even play off like that. She played it as a really, really pretty woman that got a lot of attention from a lot of people and didn't know life.
Her and the guy that was all obsessed with her, it felt like they were just too forced.
Yeah,
like it didn't.
It was the only part of the show I didn't really like.
So for me, when you say the last 20 minutes, for me it was the 20 minutes before the last 20 minutes.
Yeah,
that's what I didn't like.
The part I hated was when they interjected her and him and that weirdness, but most specifically that his weakness was a fear of death.
Yeah,
That's so stupid. Why would he be afraid of death?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it was more. To me, it was more like
it wasn't even that he was afraid of death. He longed for death, which is clearly not true. Because he could just stay asleep forever, which is effectively death.
Sure. No, you're right. But I think that for me, it was more about breaking down his like narcissism and his oh, you think you're a badass.
I like the tropes where he's mentally weak in certain ways. You know, all of his weaknesses as a vampire are his own mental weaknesses.
Yes.
Right? They're self-inflicted. They're not actual.
100%.
And so once they exposed that, I thought that was really cool.
Yep.
But then he elected to die?
Yeah, that was weird, and I'm with you on the like he involuntarily puked, but in my mind it was like, oh, now he knew what to expect, and he just choked it down and was like, I'm gonna, you know, it wasn't. It was the execution.
And what is the payoff in Dracula dying?
It was just bringing that whole thing to a close of like, oh, the ultimate fucking badass that really wasn't. I like the idea. I really like the. You're really not allergic to sunlight, and you're really not.
I love that part.
But I think you're right though. The payoff kind of was like, what? Like there was no real payoff.
He's a 500-year-old warlord. He phrases it that way several times.
Yeah.
He knows death. He is okay with killing people. It's funny too because they did the whole bride thing throughout, right? The Bride of Dracula.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like real subtle. They didn't just throw it in your face, right? There was a bride in the attic.
Yeah.
Harker was a bride, right?
Yeah.
And then the chick in London was a bride. She was his greatest bride, his biggest success. So they kept bringing it closer and closer to the forefront, and with her, it was in your face. That was his whole goal, was to find his perfect bride and to make a baby.
Yeah.
They referred to it over and over. He can't procreate. He can't procreate. He can't make a baby. It's never stuck. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And so I was thinking the whole time, we're going to get a Bride of Dracula here. This chick is going to be our Bride of Dracula. And then when they incinerated her and cremated her, I was like, holy crap, he's going to have a really ugly Bride of Dracula. And that didn't pay off at all.
Yeah.
Clearly stakes work.
Yeah, obviously. It was weird. That was weird. That whole story arc was weird with her. I don't know. I could have done without it, or just a different version of it.
I would have been fine if they never brought him to the future.
Sure, me too.
In this season.
Same thing.
I would have been okay if they would have had a whole season to prep, in between seasons, to prep for a modern day society, where how he would interact with that. It felt forced and too quick to me. It's like like I said, when you bring an ancient dude like that,
or maybe just one more episode in this thing or something, like a 4 episode. I don't know.
I think they should have done 3 episodes with Agatha Van Helsing in the late 1800s. Finish that story arc completely, and then the next season should have been the future. He should have woken up, walked out of the water 123 years later.
Because you did definitely get more of the 1800 stuff with those 2 full episodes.
Yes,
and
it
then
felt better.
And then the the modern day thing it did feel very rushed.
Yeah.
And there was that weird thing about the little kid that kept calling her beautiful. That was
Blue
like the
for lady, yeah.
Yeah, that was like the little zombie kid.
And you get nothing.
And then
from
he
that.
showed up and he was like, I got to kill this kid.
I gotta
And
kill
you're
the kid.
You're like, what?
But it shows his nonchalant to kill.
Well, I get that part, but it was like, why? Like, why is this kid in her room? Like, I don't even know.
That's the thing. That guy's not afraid of death. And he
Yeah.
doesn't even long for it, right?
Yeah.
He longs for interesting things.
Yeah.
They produce this character that only longs for a bride, a baby, and cool shit.
But then you're right. But then at the end, when he staked the chick, he was like, oh, well. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
He's like, the most and he says it after, but he's not like convincing. He's like, you killed the most perfect bitch ever.
Yes.
And you're like, what? And then he's like, anyway, you can leave. And it was like,
Yeah.
What?
Which expresses, again, nonchalantness over death and existence, effectively, right? He doesn't care about anyone but himself.
Yeah.
He's the ultimate narcissist because everyone else dies.
Sure.
He's so used to that it doesn't matter, which makes sense, right?
He's been around for 500 years. Yeah.
If you've been around for 500 years, you've seen a lot of fucking people die.
Yeah, no doubt.
Well, at the end of the day, it just wasn't there for me. I just didn't. None of that made any sense. If you took one of the big pieces out, some of it might make more sense and feel more cohesive.
Mm-hmm.
But all of those weird random pieces that just got shoved in together, and your main, I know that they can bring him back. I know that they can do other story arcs with him. I know that, that's how Hollywood media operates, right? It just is going to feel stupid now.
Yeah, you're right. And I don't even know. I kind of hope they don't. I hope that was just a miniseries and
I would
that's it.
love that, like Godless.
Yeah.
We need to review that at some point.
Yeah, we'll do that. But yeah, guys, if I think ultimately I liked it. I think it's worth watching.
I loved it.
I think
Until I didn't.
now that we've kind of talked about it, the third episode in general was probably the weakest, just because because of what it led up to.
Yeah.
The arc with the party chick and the guy just didn't go anywhere, and I wish they would have done more with the research facility stuff and
Yeah, that whole organization.
Yeah, because it was like they're mercenaries, and they're like, oh, never mind.
And they kept saying that the money went back forever.
And then all of a sudden she was
occult.
just then all of a sudden it was just like, oh, she's just in the hospital dying. I was like, what?
She retired. And
Like
was
she
dying
has
all of a sudden.
she has more money. Like she clearly has a shitload of money. Like, and I'm not saying that you can just cure cancer because you got a ton of money, but like you figure you can I don't know. It got weird.
I thought they were going to make a big deal of her having cancer on purpose.
Yeah, and I also thought there was going to become more of the.
I thought that was like the antidote in case, like the safety measure to not become a vampire.
Yeah, but her drinking Dracula's blood didn't really do anything.
Other than give her the memories of
Just but it's
Van
like,
Helsing,
I mean, it didn't
it was.
It didn't make her badass. I mean, I'm not saying it should have. I just don't. I mean, I feel like there should have been something else.
Yeah, the payoff was the only payoff for that was, and it's like she instinctively knew that was the next step for some reason.
Yeah,
I don't. You know what I mean?
Yeah, she just drank.
There was no scientific research.
Well,
but she's a scientist.
he said that the
blood is life.
He's even said the answers in the blood. If you look into this, you'll figure it out. And then that's when
she didn't look at it; she drank it.
Right, but I think I think that was just that inherent, the blood's the answer.
Yeah,
do it, and whatever.
And I'm fine.
It's
with
lazy.
That leap.
It's lazy.
I'm
but
fine with that leap, right?
Yeah.
But she's a scientist at the end of the day.
Yeah, and the whole thing is they have this research facility that was literally showcased for 3 minutes. It's like this big, intricate fucking
Maybe
cell.
they just didn't have the budget.
Maybe not.
To fill that.
When they were
out.
he's got a lawyer, and the lawyer, I know he was supposed to be this bad. He was kind of this sleazy,
he was a
divorce lawyer in Florida,
He looked like he didn't look put together at all.
And it was just what?
Yeah.
They're like, he lawyered up, and he got
looked
right.
like
so
a lawyer that could kind of handle himself, but drank a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he had the blotchy skin and the comb over and shit. But yeah, ultimately though, I think overall, so let's kind of wrap this, kind of bring it all around. I think it was a good show. First episode, second episode. The first episode is just
killer,
and the second one, I think they're both equally as good.
Excellent episodes.
Because that kind of whole whodunit murder mystery feel. Mm-hmm. I'm a sucker for that anyway.
I thought they had a really good feel to both of the episodes, and distinct from each other as well.
Yeah. They had their own flavor. Mm-hmm. The third episode started pretty good.
Very distinct flavor as well, just not as good.
And it just kind of petered out.
It's like Neapolitan, but you hate one of the three.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In those, honestly, it's
that
the strawberry.
Strawberry.
Yeah. I think I like strawberry ice cream. Okay.
But it ruins chocolate and vanilla.
Yeah. You're like, fuck, man, get out of here, dude.
Everybody eats around that strawberry, and if you don't, you're a psycho.
Yeah, probably so.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't fucking eat the strawberry. You fucking
Yeah, just leave. Just matter of fact, just buy a gallon of chocolate and a gallon of vanilla, and eat them.
Yeah, quit being a fucking
Yeah,
toddler.
stop buying all three at the same time. You're getting tricked by the ice cream companies.
Yeah, Big Ice Cream is trying to sell
big
you
issue.
a lie here. So Dracula, watch it, guys. If you haven't, it's a good show. If you've already kind of listened to this, you already kind of know what's going to happen. But tell us what you thought about our discussion, our review. Keep in touch with us. You can reach out to our email, which is stayradpodcast@gmail.com. That is stayradpodcast@gmail.com. All one word and all that good stuff. No special characters. Check us out on Facebook at the Radcast. That's going to get changed to the McRADcast, so search either one of those. And Instagram, McRADcast, McRADcast. And we'll be posting updates. We'll be posting upcoming episodes, events, things like that. And yeah, let us know what you thought about the discussion, the review, what your thoughts were on Dracula. We'd love to hear it. And yeah, we'll be coming at you soon with more things. So
Thanks for listening, guys.
absolutely. Peace.